Hey everyone, it's Jadasia, and welcome to another episode of Decoded Dreams. And of course, as always, I have a special guest. But this time I have a very, very special guest. I have my father. Hi.
Hey, sweetheart.
You're going to introduce yourself to the camera?
Sure. I'm Jadasia's father.
Okay, well that's cool.
Everybody calls me Doc. She calls me Pop. There you go.
Yeah. I am his first child, y'all. So
The very first one.
The very first one. Not the last, but the first. So
The first.
That's what's important. So today, I'm glad you came because we're going to talk about just us. I wanted us to talk about, I feel like a lot of people could benefit from hearing about, one, what it was like for you as a father, not only being young, but then like taking like full-time custody over me. And I know that was a whole journey within itself. But then also wanting to talk about like the type of conversations that you and I had to have to get back to where we are now. Like I feel like we're in a really, really great spot and we have a great relationship.
Absolutely.
But there was a short period of time where like...
Because we're so much alike.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of times when we are so much alike in the way that we move, like I moved out of my parents' house at 16. Mm-hmm. Your grandmother moved out when she was 14. Mm-hmm. So we have really strong heads and strong personalities, and they likely clash with other people.
They clash with other people, but they also clash with each other, especially when like I feel like for me, I had a very my perception of who you were as a person was different because one, I was young, but then also I was never with you full time. But then whenever I was with you full time, I got to see like you did, like there was a short period of time where I was literally with you every other weekend. Right. And then I went from being with you every other weekend to living with you all the time. And that was a change. How did you feel about that?
Honestly, I've always wanted you to live with me.
Yeah, that's true.
Because I knew early on I wasn't going to be with your mom, so I did. I did. I knew it wasn't going to last. Yeah, I knew that I wanted you to live with me, and I knew the statistics for you to live with me were you had better odds being with me than you did with your mom. So, yeah. And I was thinking about those things back then, like even still, she'll be better off with me than she is over there. So that's my thought.
Yeah, no, and that's very real, but like
I was 19. I didn't know how to raise a child. And she was way more mature than I was.
My mom was?
Man, your mom was way more mature than I was.
Really?
Yeah.
I would have never guessed that.
Yeah. It was rough times.
it was rough times, but I think that's funny that you said that my mom was very mature back then, especially because now when people see me and they're always like, well, why do you talk to your dad but you don't talk to your mom? Mm-hmm. And I'm always like, well, first of all, one, like you and I have had some tough conversations, but then like I think the way you two handled those conversations were way different. Like one, there was a lot of things that you didn't know about up until I became an adult, and I was like, yeah, you know, and you was like, well, if I would have known that, Jadasia, like I wouldn't have kept you in that environment as long as you were. True. But then also, like, having those conversations, you didn't lack accountability. Like, you would be like, yeah, I did do that. And
something I learned later on in life.
Yeah. But see, like, and that's one of the differences between you and her, obviously. You know, like, I can talk to you and you'd be like, this is where I went wrong, you know?
I think everybody, I think you and I are so close because we went through so much in that, and deciding that we were going to part ways at a time. Mm-hmm. And when we started coming back together, it was something that I knew I had to work through. Yeah. Because I knew it wasn't just you. Mm-hmm. And to think that it's just one person when we all have input into the relationship. Accountability is key if you want to move on. And I wanted to move on. Same. I was tired of arguing with you.
Anyways.
Can't win an argument with you.
Anyways, I think that's kind of the same way that I felt. Like, not only did I want to move on for my sake, but then I thought about, like, I remember calling you one day when I was in college, and I was like, why don't you talk to me as much as everyone else talks to their kids? And you were like, what are you talking about? And I was like, my line sisters, they talk to their parents all the time. All they have to do is call someone up and they'll answer. Like, that's regular. And you was like, because I don't like talking on the phone, Jadasia. And you was like, why don't you call me? And I'm like, I'm your child. Why don't you call me? You know, but then obviously it wasn't like overnight that you started calling me more frequently. But now it's like, I noticed that you'll send me like text messages. You may not always get on the phone, and that's fine, because me too. Like, I don't like being on the phone all the time. But then when we do talk, I remember you would be like, all right, Jadasia, like we'd be on the phone for 5 minutes, and you'd be like, all right, Jadasia, bye. But now we could literally sit on FaceTime for 2 hours. We don't do that all the time, obviously. But now we could sit on FaceTime for 2 hours. There was a time where you would be like, oh, Jadasia, like, you're so secretive. You don't tell me anything. Well, how was it? But now I'd be like,
you were.
But rightfully so, though. Like,
I guess, sure.
No, like, no, rightfully so. Like, everything that I would tell people, they would either, one, throw it back in my face. Mm-hmm. Two, they would go and tell someone else. And I told you that. I was like, I remember telling you something, and we just recently had this conversation. Like, within the last year. I said I had told you something. I don't remember what it was, but I had told you specifically.
Yeah.
And then you went and told your wife. Mm-hmm. And me and her, we didn't have like a relationship at the time. Right. And I was like, why would you tell her that? And it wasn't up until like we had this conversation that you were like, well, Jadasia, whatever it was that you told me, like, it must have stuck with me a lot, because I had to go tell her, and like, that's your person, you know, so you have to have someone to help you share that burden. But to me, that was like a betrayal of trust. I was like, how dare you tell her? Like, I don't know this woman, you know?
Yeah.
But whenever you put it like that, and you was like, I can't carry all this by myself. Like, that's my wife, you know, like, so I was like, okay, I get it now as an adult. I was like, I get it.
That's what relationships are for.
Right, exactly.
You can't trust your spouse. You can't trust nobody.
Right. But to me, it was like, I didn't have that same relationship with her. So it kind of felt like, why are you telling my business to her? Like, this is still a stranger to me. Although this is someone that you love and you want to spend life with, it was like, don't be telling my business, you know? Yeah. And then once you put it like that, I said, okay, so now I have to operate with, if there's anything that I tell you, if I don't explicitly say, like, hey, don't tell Jan.
If you do tell me that, I wouldn't.
Right, exactly. But see, I didn't know that I even had to say that, because I just assumed, like, you're my father, so you owe me loyalty, you know?
When you married, you won.
Yeah.
And that's part of the whole thing about being married, is you really become one. Like, people think like, oh, you one person and then y'all do everything together and you can read each other's minds and all that stuff. But really, it's you're sharing that burden of being an adult, being parents, of being a husband, of being a wife, or whatever that is.
Yeah.
And that way you're going through the world, so you don't have to with this person, so you don't have to do it all on your own. So why not share it?
Yeah. I mean, I get it now. And I think that's what it is. Like, there were things that even you were dealing with, because I remember when I was 16 is whenever I stopped living with you. Mm-hmm. But before that, like, there were things that you were dealing with. And whenever I moved in with you, I was used to you pre-Kuwait, like who you were before you got deployed, right? So I was like, oh, he went to church all the time. He had a corporate America job, you know, like, we would spend time doing different things. Like, we were going skating every Saturday morning. You know, like, you were just so active and involved. But then once you got back from being overseas, like, I was still expecting you to be that same person. So when you weren't that same person, I was like, what's going on here? And obviously it was a tough, like, it's kind of hard to explain that to a child. But also because I didn't actually know what was really going on. Because it was a big transition time for me. Because I had, I had so much alone time, and that was probably one of the longest times I've had away from any of the family. Yeah. So being away for over a year and dealing with all the stuff I had to deal with while being in the military, being a medic in the military, and still having a family back home. Yeah.
that's functioning without me there. So it was really rough, and really kind of going through a separation and divorce at that time too.
Right.
Was kind of crazy, separating from the church. All those things just kind of added all up, and yeah. I mean, that whole situation was stressful with your mom and you and all that. It was really stressful.
Yeah. I mean, I could imagine now, like, I think about how old I am, and I'm like, okay, if I'm 25 years old, like, I look at, like, you and my mom, and I'm like, they were parents by the time they were my age. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'm like, how?
Yeah.
Like, how were y'all able to do that? And obviously,
we were so dumb.
Yeah. But luckily, I still.
I mean, I don't regret having you at all. I don't regret being with your mom or none of that stuff. But we were such dumb kids. We were absolute idiots. I remember your mom saying, like, "Oh, I don't think I can get pregnant." Like, you're a teenager. Like, what makes you think like you don't have the power of reproduction at this point in time in your early life?
Honestly, I feel like most women think that if they never got you know, if you don't get after a certain period of time, you're like, does everything work correctly? You know, like, should I be scared? I do think that that's like a natural like thought. Like, if it's never happened.
I guess.
I know. I'm sure. I know men don't think like that, but I know women do for sure.
I think men think like that too. To a certain extent, like that we can't reproduce, but I think it's really early on, maybe.
Yeah. I hope none of y'all.
Apparently, I have no problems reproducing. So.
Apparently, so is correct. All these siblings I got. Yeah, I think that's so funny because every time I tell people, I'll be like, yeah, I'm the oldest. And they'll be like, yeah, really? And I'll be like, yeah. And I got 8 brothers and 3 sisters. And they just be like,
yeah,
how? And I'm like, yeah, but I think it's funny because I know I've had conversations with you where I've talked about like my other siblings that are from my mom's side. And I've been like, we were raised in the exact same environment. Like, why did I turn out to be the way that I am? And they seem to like not have the same mentality as I.
Not yet.
Not yet, for sure. But I do think that, I won't speak for all of them, but I do think that some of them have shown signs of definitely making those changes in life. But, like, for me, it came so early. Like, I feel like I've always just been, like, we were just talking about this in the car, where I was like...
I mean, you had a lot put on you at a young age.
Yeah.
You really did. You had a lot put on you at a young age.
Yeah.
That's really why I wanted you, because you had so much on you. I knew I didn't want you raising kids and all that kind of stuff at a really young age.
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that you... I always said I want to make sure that you can be a kid.
And that was not the case at all. Unfortunately, it wasn't. But
just wanted you to be a kid. That's all I wanted.
It was never. It wasn't really ever the case. Like, I always tell people, like, a part of my story and the thing that I always tell people, like, when people ask about like my childhood, my upbringing, I'm always like, well, you know, like, I was exposed to a lot of things that I should not have been exposed to as a kid. Me being 25, I'm like, I would have never. At this age, I look at the way I view children, and I view children as children. So it always just. It infuriates me whenever I think about, like, the adults that I had in my life. And I was like, why weren't you viewing children as children? You know what I'm saying? Like, why weren't you trying to protect the children in your life? Like, the amount of things that happened to me as a child and a teenager, but I'm still a child. But then, like, to know that, like, that was the norm, you know what I'm saying? And then... I mean, you remember there were cases where I was like, I have told people. And you was like, but you didn't tell me. And I was like, I didn't know I could. Like, I thought they were going to handle it. You know what I'm saying? And they didn't.
If you want some handling, you had to come to me.
Yeah, I know. But we didn't, at the time, we didn't have that, like.
I mean, I know that's how you felt. But I always felt like we had a really good relationship until you told me that we didn't. I mean, I really did. I really thought we had a really good relationship until you was like, no, we don't. And then I was like, okay, well, whatever you say.
But that's such a dad thing of you to think. Like, you know, like.
I mean, you were my first child.
Right.
I had no comparison to it.
I get that.
and then my relationship with my parents being so volatile as well, that was kind of normal.
Yeah, but to me, I was like, no, like,
right.
And
you required more.
Yeah, and I still do. Okay, like I'm that's just the way that I am. Like,
right.
I learned at a very young age that, like, well, you know me, like I tell you straight up, like, no, I don't like that person. And then you'll be like, well, Janasia, well, you know, like, you'll ask me why, and I'll be like, maybe it was something they said, or maybe they did something to me wrong.
But you've been like that, like, even as a kid, like girlfriends that I had, you were like,
No.
I don't know how many girlfriends I broke up while you was just a baby, because I'd be dating somebody and you just be like,
no.
You wouldn't care for them, and I just be like, that's not gonna work.
Right, but for the people that I do care for, like, I care, like, wholeheartedly for them. Like, I do everything in my power to ensure that, like,
I would agree with
you
that.
know, like,
yeah,
I bend over backwards for the people that I care about. But it's like, once I feel like you've wronged me, I've learned that it's hard for me to think that you won't wrong me again. Like, if you were capable of doing it once, you're more than capable of doing it again. So naturally, that's why I push people to the side. But really, I'm big on trust. Like, if I want to confide in you, I should be able to confide in you and just you, you know? But
yeah, I mean, I think people always change. They have different experiences in their life, which cause them to change. And you may not know about that experience, but those experiences are important. And I always look at things like, I trust people for who they are. Yeah. Like, you show me who you are, I believe you. Like, no problems, we're good. I might can trust you to borrow some of my tools, but borrow money, no.
Yeah.
I might can trust you around my family and all that, but not my wife. So I trust people
that's real.
I just don't give everybody 100% trust. I mean, I trust what people show me, and that's what you show me. That's how I react now. Like, if you don't show me nothing crazy, I don't know. We're good.
See, no, I'm not like that.
See, I had to be like that though.
Right.
Being in the military, like, you're there with a bunch of dudes that you don't know from all over the world, all over the country, with all kinds of different backgrounds. Some of them coming in and very racist, and they clearly don't like black people or any other kind of brown person. And by the time you're done with the training and all that stuff, y'all might be best friends.
Yeah. But I think that's with everything. Whenever it comes to, like, sometimes community comes from, like, a shared experience, you know, like, that's what really builds the bond. Like, and I think about that.
Bullets over your head to make you do that.
Unfortunately,
bullets flying will make you be friends with somebody.
Unfortunately, but that's also something that impacted our relationship. Is you were so adaptable to everything. Like, I remember one day we was eating normal food, and then the week later, all of a sudden there was nothing but vegan food in the house, and I was like, I'm not vegan, and you were like, well, Jadasia, like, you know, like, and I said, why do you change whenever you're dating someone new? Like, you change, like, you basically adopt a whole new personality, and you was like, I'm adaptable, like, you know. And to me, I was like, that's weird, like, I'm not doing that.
I always have, because I've always grown up in uncomfortable situations.
Yeah, and I mean, me too, but I've also...
You think I didn't care? Your grandparents didn't care. Like, whatever they was doing, you was doing it. Like, it didn't matter. So if they say we move in this week, I mean, we uprooted and left so quick. Like, I was still in school.
Yeah.
In the middle of my school year with all my friends and everything, and I didn't hear nothing about moving until the day we was moving.
Yeah.
Like, literally, I was 8 years old, like, boom, let's go. We're leaving. We're moving to Florida. I was like, huh? Where? With who? I ain't even met the people that we move with.
Yeah. But I mean, you did do something similar to me whenever Jan moved. Yeah,
I mean, because it was normal. Like, that's how I had grown up to be. Like, I had grown up to be very much, hey, you accept what your parents do. That's what it is. Accept it and go. But I'm the youngest child.
Right.
You're the oldest child.
Right.
So I had 4 more examples in front of me that taught me that, hey, this is how you move. This is what you do when mom and pop do something crazy.
No.
So I had that example. You didn't have that example, so you kind of paved the way for everybody else.
Right. But then even whenever I moved with you, that was hard because I was so used to calling the shots in my life when I was living with my mom. Like, I was the guidance. Like, I said what I would do, where I would go to school. Like, there was no sort of governing behind that. Like, like I made the decisions for everything in my life. But I remember there was once where I was applying to go to a school and you was like, I applied and I got accepted. And you was like, no, you're not. And I was like, yes, I am. Like, I am going to, it was a performing arts school. And I was like, I am going to this school. And you was like, no, you're not. You don't get to just.
I mean, it wasn't a great school.
But see, you knew that. I didn't care. Yeah. I was like,
I mean, it was like right outside the projects. Like the projects was surrounding it, literally. And I knew a good portion of the kids who had gone there that were older. And I mean, it just wasn't a good school. It wasn't better than the school that you ended up going to. Well,
yeah. Which
was in a much nicer neighborhood.
Right. No, I mean, and obviously, like I said, everything worked out in my favor.
But also, even when you missed that bus, I woke up at what a.m. in the morning?
Like it was like 4:30.
Exactly. I was right there with you, take you to the bus if you missed it, and everything else. So.
Oh, naturally, because it was early.
I made sure you got to the school that I wanted you to go to.
Right.
Now that other school, I might have been like, maybe not.
I get that, but now, I mean, now we're at a good place. Like now, I call you all the time. Now I'd be like. I invite you to things whenever it comes down for me to celebrate. And you know how I am, because I'll be like, no. Like,
I mean, I'd be okay either way.
See.
I would. I mean, if you invite me to your stuff, I'm fine. If you don't, I'm fine. Like, I'm going to live.
I mean, yeah, obviously.
But, I mean, I want to be involved in your life. Mm-hmm. When you have children, I want to be involved in my grandkids' lives and, want you to find somebody and be happy. Always.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. But if you ever need me, you can always call me and I'll be right there.
Yeah, no.
And that would have been no matter what kind of relationship we had. Like.
Well, I'm glad you said that because that's not how I feel.
Yeah.
Like, I definitely would have been like, no. I mean, like, you see how I am with my mother.
Right.
Like, you'll be like, well, when was the last time you talked to your mom? And I'm like, she's blocked.
I probably talk to your mom more than you do.
Yeah. And that doesn't bother me at all. Like, one thing that...
It bothers me. Because you should definitely... I mean, like I said, you have to trust people the way that they show you that they are. And you set your boundaries and don't move from those boundaries. But as far as... I always think about the future. Like, nobody lives forever. Mm-hmm. And people are in and out of your life. So if they've done something to you that you can never forgive them, then fine. But if at some point in your life you're going to end up forgiving them and moving on from it, then you might as well just move on from it now and trust them the way that they show you that they're going to be. And that's it.
And that's fine.
You don't have to like make extra effort or anything or do anything crazy, or, but maybe take a call every now and again. That's all.
Yeah,
that's
I'm
all
not going to do that.
That's up to you.
Yeah, no. I feel like I've tried. Like I've tried even having her just at like arm's length. Like I
know it's difficult.
It
is. It really is. I know.
Yeah, but no, that wouldn't work for me. You
probably shouldn't be talking about your mom like that though, but you can edit this out.
No, like I try. One thing I tried to do, because I look at it again like as if I was in her shoes, and I'm like, I expect her to make mistakes. Like when y'all were young, when you had me, you know what I'm saying? But also it's like, there's a difference between making mistakes and owning up to the fact that you made mistakes and just being like, I did make mistakes. I was young, I probably shouldn't have done that. But then you have those people who will say like, I didn't make no mistakes, or sorry, I'm just the worst possible person. And it's like, see, people like that are the people that I know I can't trust, because no matter what, they will always manage to be the victim in anyone's story. And unfortunately, that's the case.
Yeah, but society allows for men to be a lot more accountable than women.
Well, yeah.
So men have to be accountable for every little mistake that a man makes,
Mm-hmm.
whereas females have a little bit more of a cushion to make mistakes. So accountability doesn't always come right away. Usually females have to go through a lot before they become very accountable for the things that they say and do.
Mm-hmm.
And they may never become accountable for the thing that they say. But if a man, and I'm saying this because, for instance,
I said we wasn't gonna be talking no men versus women.
No, I mean it's not that. I'm just saying just how society is. This is how it is. Like, men and women have always been at odds at certain things, but there has never been at certain odds that men are like stronger than women and all that kind of stuff, and men have to take care of their families and their children and protect the women that are in their life.
Right.
Whole society is built because of women and children.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, there's a bit of a buffer there for you all to make more mistakes than men, and still be all right in society. Whereas a man, he make those mistakes, same mistakes, prison, this, that. It's like nobody feels sorry for a man.
Yeah.
And because of that, you know, we deal with different things. We have to be accountable and come to the idea that whatever we do, we are 100% responsible for, and we're going to deal with the consequences or benefits of that thing. That's how I've tried to live my life probably in the last 15, 20 years. Just understand, like, I have to be accountable for myself.
Years is crazy. I'm not that old.
What?
I said I'm not that old, so 15,
not
20 years.
Not that old?
Like,
you're older than 20, aren't you?
Obviously, yes.
Yeah.
But, like, you're saying that's how you tried to live your life. That's majority.
Understanding that men have consequences from all their actions. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Like, not necessarily that I was 100% accountable in my family, but understanding that as being a man in society that, yeah, I can't be around here doing certain things because that's going to affect my life.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone does have their things that they can and cannot get away with. Like, you could break it up. Men, women, people who are older, people who are younger.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, we all have our things. Yeah. But, like, you may be able to walk out looking
privileged in some things, not so privileged in others.
So that's a given. But I do think that whenever it comes to, like, personal relationships, like, there shouldn't be a buffer. You know, like, whenever I look at, like, you versus my mom, I hold y'all to the same standard. Why? Because y'all are both my parents. Like, there's no difference between my mother and my father. And I think that's where we had an issue because, like, I'd be like, well, why don't you talk to me? Why don't you do this? And you're like, I'm your father. Like, you know, like, it took... I would be trying to push, like, that nurturing side on you. Like, why aren't you doing this? And you're like... I'm
not real nurturing.
Yeah, I mean, I know that now. But for me, I was like, obviously, I was lacking. I didn't have, like, a true nurturer. So I found myself, like, going out trying to find someone who could like take up, like, that nurturer role in my life. So I was like,
I was doing the same thing.
Parent. Like, if she's supposed to be a nurturer, you're supposed to be a nurturer. Yeah. But it wasn't until I became an adult that I was like, no, like, it doesn't have to be that way. But I think that's why I look at y'all like that and I compare the two. Although you have different roles in society and then just in general, like mother, father. But like, to me, I was like, I don't care what y'all are. Y'all are both my parents.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So if he can do it, why can't she? Or if she can do it, why can't he?
Because people have different experiences that bring them to whatever situation they're in, whatever personality they have, how they deal with things. It's experiences that make you do that. In the more experiences you have, the more adaptable you'll be.
Yeah.
Period. Like, if your mom has been in one place for all her life, likely she'll be there until she passes away.
Yeah. And that's true.
I don't know where I'm going to be in the next 5 years.
I know, because I'm trying to get you to move to Texas.
Well, that might not happen. I like Texas, but not that much. I'm a lot slower than Texas. Although I would consider ranch life. I would.
Oh, okay.
So.
Yeah, I don't know if I do that, but.
Well, I'm not asking you to do it. I'm just saying me.
I know that.
But if you got a kid and you trying to get away from everybody, trust me, ranch life will do you good.
I'll consider that whenever I have a kid. I do appreciate that you always, the people who I do bring around you, you do always like accept them as their own. Like you call Earth your other daughter, even though you're not her father. And I know she appreciates that too. And then like all my friends, like Kaylee.
Yeah.
Kaylee was living with us, you know?
That's
like
true.
she could be at the house and I wasn't even there. I could be at practice or at work and she'd be chilling with y'all as if she was family. So that is one thing that always stood out to me, that like although we had things going on behind closed doors, when we were out in the public, no one ever knew. And that for a lot of people that could be a bad thing.
For me it was fine. For you, not so much. Again,
that's just because you just weren't, you didn't look into things the way I
never raised a teenage girl, and you weren't like any of my sisters or any other young female that I had ever dealt with. So,
well, yeah.
I just tried to. I just wanted to be there. Like my father wasn't there. Like my father never participated in anything that I did academically or sports or any of that.
Right.
Like if I was spending time with him, it was on his terms.
Yeah.
Like we was going maybe fishing or working on a car or church. That was it. And those were all things that he wanted to do.
Right.
It had nothing to do with me. So I tried to meet you on your level of, hey, I want to do this, I want to do that. So that's why I was sleeping on the field at your school in a tent and doing those things, because I just wanted to make sure that I did what my pop didn't do.
Right.
And what he didn't do is spend time. But for you, that wasn't necessarily all that you needed. Well,
it wasn't that wasn't all that I needed, but my thing is that because you were the one stable thing in my life, I hated that you were always also playing the father figure to other people. I was like, you're my father. Like, why every time we go skating, Stacy has to come, you know, which is my little cousin. Like, every time, there was no more, like, father-daughter stuff. And because I was your only child for so long.
Because they all needed father figures, too.
I know, but so did I.
You did.
So I was like, no, like, I don't want to share. Like, I already have to share with all my other siblings and with everything else in life.
And, I mean, you have to think, like, I wasn't in as good a shape. So when you want to go out and play, it's like, do I go out and play with this 12-year-old, or do
you bring someone?
I bring somebody to, you know what I mean? Like, let her. She got a friend to play with. She ain't got to just play with me.
No, but see, for me, I always seen that as if like you didn't want to be alone with me. Like you always, it would be like, why is he always bringing someone along with us instead of just letting us have our time together?
Yeah.
And I think that's why I always came off as a lot, because I was like, no, because every time that I did have with you, it was always me, you, and someone else, or me, you, and Jan, or me, you, and the other kids. Like, it was never just me and you. And for the longest, that's all I knew, like, was me and you know? We used to sit up and play video games together. And for me, like, I tell people all the time, like, my favorite video games to this day are the ones that I played with you. Even though they're all outdated and, you know, whatever. And, you
they're pretty outdated.
They are. But, like, that was, like, my first introduction to, like, obviously, whenever I was living with my mom, like, we had video games, but they were not really ours. Like, they weren't mine, you know. But, like, being there and having that with you, like, skating, all those things that you introduced me to, like, I still hold to them today. But I realized I stopped doing them for so long because I would only do them with you. But then, like, you wouldn't only be doing them with me. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And that bothered me.
Oh. I mean,
I feel like now we don't have this issue.
That's your personality. I mean, I don't want to say like you have a selfish attention thing. Like you want your selfish attention.
Yeah.
And I've never been that way. Like I've always had to share my attention with other people. Like I never got one-on-one time with none of my parents.
Right.
Neither one of my parents, never ever once that I can think of where it was one-on-one time with them where they were taking me to do an activity.
Right. But you were also the youngest.
I was the youngest.
Right, but I was
so
the oldest.
I wasn't used to that. All I did, like the stuff that we did, that was unprecedented for the family period.
Right.
Because people just in our family, they didn't do it.
Which is so crazy because every time you tell
So
me
easy.
things, I be like, you mean the same people that, like, when you talk about, like, grandma and grandpa, I'm like, grandma and grandpa, what are you talking about? Because they are not like that. But I think it's funny because everyone always says that, like, your parents become, like, great parents whenever they become grandparents, you know?
Yeah.
And that's kind of...
I mean, honestly, in a lot of countries, that's how it works is the parents work and take care of grandma and grandpa take care of the kids and raise the kids.
Yeah.
Because their thought is, like, why would we allow these young children that have never raised kids to raise the kids, and then
Right.
they're supposed to be the future of society.
Right.
So we see where it goes wrong now, but grandma's off the chain these days.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true.
Grandmas are off the chain, so I don't know about some grandmas raising kids, because I'd be like, yo, mama is wild. Jesus.
You can't be talking about people's parents, but that's okay.
I mean, some people is out there. Like, nah, I'm not talking about your grandmother.
I mean, I know, but also it's because you got to think about it. Like, one, like, people as a society, like, people are transitioning. They're not being as traditional as they once were. Things are happening a lot earlier than they once were. So naturally, if most grandparents became grandparents when they were in their 50s, but now they're becoming grandparents when they're in their 30s.
I don't want to see grandma, mama, and daughter twerking.
Well, okay.
On the same video. I don't want to see it. I'm sorry, I don't.
I mean, I get it.
Like, cool. Y'all want to twerk? That's cool. Like, do it separately, or like, don't do it at all. But it's, I don't know, man. I think society has to change a bit. I don't like the way society is going now, and I think traditions are what keep a society strong. And the most strongest societies have really strong traditions.
Yeah.
So
no,
as we get rid of all these traditions that we have in society, it'll just get more and more chaotic because people don't have any kind of foundation or background to depend on, and that's really most important. You hear people talk about legacy. That's the foundation. So if you have no foundation, then where you going?
Okay, not you just came up in here just dropping bars and stuff. Like, honestly, I expected that, though, because we talk about these types of things all the time. But that's also why I wanted you on here, because I was like, okay, good. Like, like, if you're on here, then we could have, like, those conversations. And all the time I tell, like, whenever I'm talking about you or whatever, and I know, like, I was talking to Daphne a few days ago, and I was like, yeah, this, and, that's why I'm like this now, and yada, yada. And she was just like, wow. Like, and I do think that it's nice to see and to look back on things and then just look at, like, how far we've come as individuals, but then just
a long way.
Yeah. No, we really have. And I think not just, like, a relationship, but literally as individuals, like, we both have bought, like, really nice homes over the last couple years and, built them from the ground up, and like, we're both doing really good for ourselves, and and I think that says a lot, because there was a rough patch.
There's a lot of rough patches.
Yeah, but it's
finally
there.
Understanding your true potential is a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
And for me, it was a very difficult thing to come to that, because I was one of those kids in school. They always said, "Oh, he has so much potential," but I was a class clown.
Yeah.
I never really wanted to focus and get it right.
Meanwhile,
I didn't go to PA school, because I was still in that mindset of, I don't want to do this. I don't want to put in the work that's needed.
Yeah.
To go through all those medical classes, and 5-6 years later, finally getting a degree. I could never, like, think about spending 5 years.
I think about all the times that you would come to school with me, and then, like, the teachers would be like, "Oh, Janae's just so smart. She's super talented, but she just talks too much, or she has an attitude." And you would be like, "I'm tired of these teachers always saying that." And it's funny now to see that I'm not going to say that I've changed, because I haven't. Like, I'm still like that. Like, I do still talk a lot, and I still do have an attitude. But it's not nearly like, I feel like back then I was a lot. I was a mean child at certain points, but it was like I have a lot going on. Like I didn't know, like you know, like
you were just expressing yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. But now I'm like, okay, yes, I do still say what's on my mind, and I have like, I can cut off people and individuals and experiences really fast and feel nothing.
I see you growing. There's some people I didn't expect to see.
Right, okay, because growth, okay, like that wasn't my doing, but I'm not mad at it.
Oh wow, okay.
I
didn't know whose doing it was.
It wasn't my doing, but I'm not mad at it at all. So, but yes, the fact that I even allowed it to happen says that it's growth.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm really glad we got to have this conversation.
Likewise.
Thanks. I know you was kind of like, ugh. Because I get my personality a lot from you. So, but I'm glad that you were able to come and talk and be here and spend this weekend. Well, it's more than just the weekend. A few days.
I mean, it's been a really good weekend. I've enjoyed it. And you throw a really good party.
Thanks.
I used to throw really good parties too.
Thanks.
So
you know, because
you probably get that from me too.
I was
honestly,
having fun
from my promotional days.
Whatever. Okay, well, thank you. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in to this episode of Decoded Dreams with Jadasia and her father.
Doc.
I really don't like when you tell people to call you that, but
That's
it's okay.
My name.
It's okay. Doc. So, yeah, thanks, everyone, and hope to see you tuned in for the next episode. Say bye. Bye.
See ya.